My dad always liked to travel, and so on our family vacations and everything, we would always try to explore some interesting places, and I thought that was all fine. But I would say my first big travel epiphany was Laura and I went to Brazil. It was about 20 years ago. My brother-in-law lived there. He was getting ready to move back, and so it's like, well, we better go see him before this opportunity disappears. So we just scraped some money together, and we got ourselves down there, and I spent a week in Sao Paulo. Well, that was, first of all, it was a totally eye-opening experience. It was like, wow, like I had no conception of how the world was outside the United States. And so I came home, it's like, wow, our politicians are not corrupt, and, we don't have any pollution, and I don't really have any problems. And I also remember for about 3 weeks, I could feel my brain just processing this whole experience that had happened to me. And it changed me, right? And then a couple years later, I went to Asia to go visit my brother. I remember landing in Taipei, Taiwan, going, I am in friggin' Asia, man, right? And then all over again, like I come home, and for weeks I'm just like processing this experience. And then a few years later, I go to Africa and it happens again, right? And I could just feel like my brain cells stretching and growing every time I would do this. And I could just tell that this is immensely helpful and healthy for me to do. One of the things I resolved to do, starting with the Brazil trip, was, well, I'm going to go, see how the other half lives on a regular basis to kind of get in touch with reality, because we kind of live in this bubble here in America. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I started having a different kind of travel experience, which is going places to connect with nature. And the most significant place for me was Western Ireland, and still is. Going on trips has become a very important thing. In fact, about a year ago, my wife goes, so when's your next trip to Ireland? I go, I don't know. And she looks at me like, come on. And I'm like, oh, well, if you're going to put it that way. So I went and I bought some plane tickets. I found a slot in my schedule, and I just escaped, right? Nowadays, like it's not a big deal. It's not that expensive. It's not that hard to do. Okay. It's less expensive than a trip to Disney. That's another thing I had to just give myself permission to do. Laura knows that this is a good strategy. It's like, it makes the checks show up. It makes things work, right? A long time ago, when I was just learning my copywriting chops and my marketing skills, one of my mentors was John Carlton, and he said, you should take a mini vacation once a month. And he said, it'll help your creativity, it'll help your resourcefulness, it'll get you out mixing with people that you wouldn't mix with, meeting people you wouldn't meet. It'll make you more aware of what's going on around you, so you're not sleepwalking through life. Everything he said made sense, but I couldn't justify it. There was a whole bunch of like little mental blocks that I had about that. The first biggest mental block was, well, I don't deserve it, or I haven't earned it yet, or something like that. It was like there was this unwritten rule that in order to do something fun like that, somebody had to give you permission, or you had to have the right to do it, or whatever. Okay, then, well, I had like little kids in diapers, so it's very inconvenient, right? And then, well, do we have the money and all this other stuff? And so I ended up doing very, very little of that. If I could do it all over again, I would start doing that to whatever extent it was possible, okay? And remember, like, the world is completely flexible, okay? So, like, you could take a 4-hour vacation, right? You could You could drive an hour out of town and spend 2 hours at a lake and drive back, right? Or you could have a 4-day vacation. There's no rule that says you have to have a 4-week vacation. There's no rule that says you have to go to Paris, right? But like, get out and do something. Interrupt the routine. I would totally do that. I would do that much sooner because I've learned to do that. And I've learned that the more responsibilities I'm carrying on my shoulders, the more important it is that I get away. I had somebody come to me just a few weeks ago and basically put an idea on the table like, Perry, this is a project I think we could start. It involves hundreds of millions of dollars. I looked over at my wife and I said, what do you think the next step is? She goes, you need to go take a personal retreat, think about it, pray about it, meditate on it, let it circulate for a while, and then come back and then decide what you're going to do. Good advice. Good woman. Yes.